My knob was down.
My knob was down.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Norm.
There was nothing, no shenanigans during that intro.
I'm glad that the madness has stopped.
It hasn't stopped. It's paused.
I'm glad that the madness is on a break. Sorry.
Oh, is that your?
It was a friend's. It was a friend's joke.
We were on a break. That's my Ross impression.
The unresolved sexual tension is my. I think have we talked about this before? It is my least favorite thing in the world as a TV trope.
I totally agree. Do you know that that's the reason that Maura Tierney and Dave Foley got together in the pilot of News Radio?
News Radio, yeah.
Because they didn't want to do that. They're like, hell with it. Let's just have them have a relationship.
Lovely show.
Yes,
News Radio.
Lovely show.
All the way through.
Everybody in it is hilarious.
And consistently hilarious.
So sad.
Yeah,
yeah.
I know. Phil Hartman is a goddamn genius.
John Lovitz was not an adequate substitute.
Phil Hartman, John Lovitz had no hope coming into that. They should have just
No, thankless job.
Yeah,
Nobody.
He came in and took the bullet.
No. Yeah.
But yeah, so unresolved sexual tension ruins everything. That's
Well,
the
it
takeaway.
ruined everything for me in high school.
Yeah, it ruins everything on Twitter. Oh God, don't even.
It's a lot of projecting.
Did you ever see? There's a terrific film called Searching for Deborah Winger.
No.
I've seen the title.
It's a documentary by Rosanna Arquette.
Okay.
Don't stay with me. It's.
I like Rosanna Arquette.
I love.
I got no
Rosanna
beef with her.
No, I love Rosanna Arquette. It's just a strange juxtaposition. You think documentary Rosanna Arquette. Anyway, it's about being a woman in Hollywood, and specifically, it's about the fact that Deborah Winger hasn't done a movie in a long time, and it's very specifically because she didn't like the tenor of the way Hollywood treats women, not even simply as subject matter, and it goes through and interviews all these different actresses who talk openly about how fucked up the whole machine is. And like, it's at one point Martha Plimpton says, I feel like we are all being lined up and walked past and judged by dudes who we wouldn't fuck in high school.
Wow.
Good way to wrap that around full circle, Adam.
There you go. Wait. And there's this really amazing bit where she finally interviews Deborah Winger, who is beautiful and just amazing and sort of graceful and sweet, and talks about how on Officer and a Gentleman, at the peak of her career, one day she's sitting in her dressing room in the morning putting on makeup, and the producer comes in and he puts some Speedy diet pills on the counter and said, "You looked a little chunky in the dailies this morning."
Oh, that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
Right, yeah. The movie's packed
Wow.
with stuff like that.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, it's real.
Oh.
I don't know how we recover from crap like that.
Well,
That's a downer.
That is a downer.
we were going to talk about all the awesome jobs that we've had, but that seems a little crass now.
No. I think
it's
that is a
good.
fine plan. So last time we talked about terrible jobs and how they shape you, I thought today we could chronicle some awesome.
I mean, just to be clear,
Yeah.
we can't. The terrible jobs, like I had jobs that I didn't stay in because I didn't like the people or didn't want to become that person.
Right.
But I've never suffered in jobs. I've never had like jobs where you have to jam your arm into animals or like clean up vomit Well, okay, I did work in a bar for a while, but that was okay.
No,
I mean, that's part of the deal.
There's a difference between a laborious job and when the work is tough and a job that sucks because of other circumstances.
Absolutely.
Outside of the actual work.
The hard work is good.
And you know, it's funny because I saw these two UPS drivers the other day where one was clearly an old timer and the other was new. And the old timer was being just the worst kind of jerk to the new guy in a way that wasn't just like, come on. It was like he was loading the new guy's hand truck. He's loading his hand truck really high with packages. And he was like, you should ask for more. It was like, you want more. That's how this
Well, you know those guys get paid based on the route that they bid and all that.
Oh, really?
So the more they do, the more money they make.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Maybe it's the more they do, the less money they make. I can't remember.
That whole piecemeal payment thing where everyone's responsible to screw everyone else to make their money.
I can't
okay,
believe we went through.
we're
I
drifting
know.
off
I know we're
topic.
drifting off topic, and I can't believe we went through all the last podcast, all of the terrible jobs talk, without talking about that Comcast call.
That Comcast call.
The Brian
yeah.
Comcast
And
call.
Retention specialist?
Yes, exactly.
Who's retaining, yes.
Well, we're 6 weeks in the past from that now. This is a distant future
but
podcast for
I was
the listeners.
specifically thinking about that because I read that Redditor's, the former Comcast employee Redditor's response to it saying, no, this is an egregious example, but the corporate culture of the retention specialist actually foments this kind of behavior because this guy is going to lose his job or lose money for his whole team by losing this customer, etc. But wait. You're right. We should have talked about that call. But I wanted to talk about
good jobs.
Good jobs. So one of the things about bad jobs, how they define you, is not only what they teach you, about hard work and about dealing with people you don't like, which is all really valuable, but they also inform you in terms of how you respond to them. Your response shapes you. You know, so when you have a job in high school, boy, it's like I'm watching my kids. How you do that job shapes how you do all jobs after that because it's the first one and it's the one you'll refer back to. And so I wanted to call out a couple of amazing employers I had early on that showed me a different way of thinking about things. Now, my dad was a filmmaker in New York in the 60s and a commercial director, and he was big in advertising. He was in Mad Men. He was a madman. And he was one of the creatives, like the big bearded Irish creative.
Oh, when you went to his office, did he have the drinks cart in the corner or no?
No. He had gotten out of any of the agency work long before I was born.
Okay.
He was he actually formed his own agency with a partner, and they were doing their own work with amazing giants of the time, like Milton Glaser and Ivan Chermayeff and Seymour Schwast, all the guys that sort of created what you think of as the push-pin style of 60s advertising.
So he was in the creative side of the agency,
Absolutely.
though? Not the like the ad executive side?
No. That was his partner.
So he was like the bearded guy on Mad Men? Okay.
That was my dad.
Okay.
Totally. So he had a tremendous amount of contacts. When I was 18 and dropped out of college and wanted to get some work, we opened up the Real Directory, and he was like, "Oh, okay, that guy used to be my assistant. That guy's an old friend. That guy's," and I just started calling them, and I called a bunch of different guys, and several of them gave me work. Like,
and this is when you learned to be a graphic designer.
This is before I got hired as a graphic designer. So about a year and a half, 2 years. And one of them was a guy named Bob Blackman. Now, back when we were kids, there were these commercials for Perrier. That was all these squiggly line animated commercials where this guy ran up and put a straw in the ground and drank the Perrier. That, wow.
Garbage day.
Oh, right. And those animations were done by an illustrator, a wonderful illustrator named Bob Blackman. And he had an animation company in Midtown, actually in the Diamond District on 47th Street, called the Ink Tank. Still one of the great names for an animation company
That's so good.
ever. Yeah. And his office was on the top floor of this 14-story building in the Diamond District, and when he rented it, it was drop ceiling and like drywall, and he knocked out the drywall to find all of this like wood wainscoting from the turn of the century and restored the office to its turn of the century glory. And the thing was that Blackman liked the studio to look. It was 2 floors. So there was offices up top and the animation studio below. He wanted it to be. Well, look at it this way. We got a Xerox machine at one point, a really advanced one that could print on acetate. So we could actually print our pencil tests on acetate to shoot them for animating. And he hid the copy machine behind a shelf so that when you walked into the office, you couldn't, if you took a photo from the front door of the animation studio, you wouldn't be able to date it.
Oh.
He wanted...
Oh, that's awesome.
Right. It was really cool.
That is a very designy thing to do.
So in 1986, Christmas of 1986, Bob, I called him and he called me and he said, "Listen, I could use you for about 3 days. I need you to wrap my Christmas presents and take them to the post office." And then I went in and met with him, and he was like, Bob is like the quintessential white rabbit kind of dude. There's always stuff going on, and he's very, frenetic. And he said,
"How is he an animator?"
I know. He's a wonderful illustrator and an incredible sense of design and story. It was really, really amazing. But he said, your father gave me my first job in the business. That's why I'm bringing you in. I don't know where you went to school. I don't really care. All I care about is if you have an eye. And if you have an eye, I can use you. It's a great thing to say. But what I realized was wrapping the presents was my interview.
Oh, right. Of course.
He wanted to see my attention to detail. And the wrapping of the presents even included, I want you to go to the post office at Rockefeller Center. They have a very agreeable postman there who will let you choose which cancellation stamp you put on the thing. And so I want you to go get a sample of 3 of them. We'll choose one. Like, this was how specific Bob's deal was. So I got hired. I ended up working for Bob as an assistant animator and color mixer for a year.
What does a color mixer do?
So when you're animating, like on the Flintstones, right? Fred's house is a painting. That's a background. Fred Flintstone himself is painted on clear acetate. And the way they do it is they ink his outline from the front, and then they paint him on the back, right? So they paint his colors on the back.
Oh, okay.
His head is one color, his teeth are another, his shirt, etc.
And then you can stay within the lines.
Right, you stay within the lines. Now, when there's another element like Wilma, she's not painted on the same cell.
She's on a different speed of acetate, right?
Cell, which means that she's either over or under Fred. And every cell you put over another cell, the colors on the cell that's under have to be mixed one shade brighter, because the acetate kills the color one half shade.
Wow.
So you might have as many as 6 elements. Sometimes.
So you were this is very much like a Chasing Amy discussion, but so you were painting in the lines.
Oh yeah,
but brightening the colors as you go
so those are 2 separate operations.
Okay.
So a dog might run through frame behind Fred. Well, that dog needs to be mixed to be the correct color to be one shade behind Fred. So you mix the dog color, and all the animators get that color so they can paint.
Okay, that's the dog color for the 5th.
Exactly, level. For the sequence in which the dog runs past.
So the acetate determines based on the composition of the shot, who moves in front of who and who moves behind who.
I think it's arbitrary, but it just has to be decided.
Okay.
And then the animator follows that. The shooter follows that. Okay, this goes on top, this goes underneath. And every frame has a set of assembly instructions.
Wow.
Can you watch old cartoons and see any mistakes where, like, the layering is wrong? And so, like, Fred is brighter and
no, that would end up being reshot or cut in.
Because once you've done the paintings, the reshooting is not. I mean, it's time consuming, I'm sure.
The thing that I notice is if Fred Flintstone walks into a room and part of the action is going to be that he's going to open a drawer, you can tell that drawer is going to be open because it's sort of like floating, right?
It's like an adventure game.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Hey, there's the part you click.
And it's you can't separate it out from the back. You can't make it blend into the background perfectly.
Yeah.
So
Disney did.
I worked for Bob for a year. Bob's the head of the animators was a guy named Settlemeyer, J.J. Settlemeyer, excuse me. J.J. Settlemeyer's dad was Joe Settlemeyer, the famous commercial director who directed all the Wendy's Where's the Beef commercials.
Oh.
J.J. has now J.J. Settlemeyer Productions. They did the Ambiguously Gay Duo and all the SNL animations.
Right.
And in fact,
the Robert Smigel stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in fact, my friend Dean Leonard, one of my old friends from New York, I think worked for J.J. for a long time. So yeah, I had this great job with these great animators and wonderful illustrators. Bob Bleckman didn't do his own animating; he hired an animator. This unbelievable Disney animator named Tisa David, who had worked on Snow White. She's a legendary Disney animator, one of the first women and female animators, because Disney, right? That was the whole thing. And here's my one regret about this great job. Every Tuesday night, Tisa would have an animation class for free for the employees, and I never went.
Well, Tuesday night was quarter tacos night at the at the Chuckle Hut.
I was like 19 and a total asshole. What did I know?
Oh my God!
Can you imagine?
Yeah. You are a total asshole.
I totally am. That's a missed opportunity.
So when you have a great job like that, do you must have known at the time you had an amazing job, or is that only in retrospect?
I think it's really only in retrospect. I mean, I knew I worked with people that I liked. I knew I got to try different things, and I got to see examples. I mean, I was working with these young illustrators who'd be like, One of them got a Village Voice. One of them got their illustration in the Village Voice.
Right.
We all had a party about it, and it was like everyone was at the beginning of their careers.
And I mean, when you're 19 years old, or at least when I was 19 years old, I didn't have any sense of perspective.
No.
I didn't realize both how much more complex I thought everything was than I actually thought it was, and I didn't know like the odds of getting crap jobs versus good jobs, and like I had a job right out of college. That was a kind of bad job, but the guy that I worked for was amazing, and that made the whole thing great. I worked with this guy named Rod Bunn, who was he was a microscope tech is what his initial that's what he trained to do.
Yeah.
And he ended up somehow in charge of facilities for the Department of Biology, which meant like building cabinets for labs.
Oh, so you did some of that?
All the electronic stuff, all the mechanical stuff, all the woodworking stuff,
Being a
all
lab
the IT
maintenance
stuff.
guy is one of my secret favorite jobs.
So I didn't get to do the carpentry stuff. That we just had one guy who all year round making cabinets. It was and
can I say that sometimes that sounds blissful to me?
he was the most serene dude you ever saw.
Dude, can you imagine?
Like he had 10 fingers, right? He had a really nice shop.
Cut shit up and make it look nice.
Yeah, and he made gorgeous cabinets all day long.
I don't mean to make it sound like that would be an easy job.
No.
Doing that right is hard work, and you've got to be good and tight on your feet, not mix a dimension or anything. But boy, that sounds heavenly.
Yeah,
Very
but
Jesse Pinkman.
He worked by exactly.
Oh, you break my heart.
And then the mechanical guys, electronic shop guys, and then I worked in the IT side. But Rod basically was like, "Look, here's the list of stuff that you have to get done every day." We had IT calls, we had maintenance stuff, and then we had like helping just random walk-ins. And once you did all that stuff, if you wanted to go noodle around and learn something new, it was totally fair game. Right. So, when I wanted to learn how the first kind of computer microscopes worked, he was totally into that, and he sat down and we walked through it and gave me a lot of opportunity for growth on stuff that I never use but is endlessly fascinating.
But you do end up using it somewhere. I mean, it goes into your brain. I mean, both of you guys have incredible resources that you draw on to be able to converse about something or extrapolate from something. And I mean, that's, when I read about things like the Amazon fulfillment centers or Walmart, where everyone is timed to the second to do what they do, I get that what you're doing is maximizing in every possible way the profits, but you are losing something really vital there by treating people like they're machines.
Yeah,
intangibles, externalities, all the human aspect.
Yes, and the amount that I brought to jobs when I was allowed to breathe a little bit and go out and learn stuff, what I brought back to those jobs was 100-fold. And actually, I didn't think we were going to go here, but I didn't think forward about going here, but I realized that one of the best jobs I had for a while was working for Jamie Heineman.
But this is pre-Mythbusters.
Pre-Mythbusters, 2003. Jamie hires me out of the theater industry to work in commercial special effects, and he had just been hearing about me and said, "Hey, I heard about you. Can you come in?" And I actually was working for Berkeley Repertory Theater for Woman Warrior. Maxine Hung King,
like doing stage design and stuff like that.
Well, in Woman Warrior, there are all these ghosts appear all over the place, and they appear and manifest by things moving. So I made like a laundry pressing machine that was sentient, and I made a lazy boy chair and an ottoman that could drive themselves around the stage. Oh, cool! So I remote control lazy boy chair.
That sounds great. I want one of those.
So I got to say to Jamie, actually, Mr. Heineman, I'm sorry I can't come in this week because I'm building a remote control lazy boy chair, but I can come in 2 weeks. And I came in and I showed him some stuff, and he hired me on the spot to work on this Nike commercial. And
hold on, is this the animated one?
No, this is just all conditioned gear. You just see water in a stream and stuff like that. And eventually I left. After 5 years, I couldn't stand Jamie and his partners as bosses. I remained professionally cordial. I just didn't like working for them.
Which is a thing that it happens and is fine.
Absolutely. But in the early days, I just kept on looking around Jamie's shop and being like, I want to learn that. And he'd be like, all right, go ahead and make this. And eventually he found out that it was usually cheaper to let me learn a machine than to go through the rigmarole of calling someone who knew how to use it and bring them in to do the thing. So that was like going to college for me.
Oh, it's an investment.
Yeah.
And there's also a wonderful time when you're in your early 20s, you don't have a family, you're probably not married yet, where if it's Tuesday night and you don't have something better to do and you're enjoying what you're doing at work, then you'll just sit there and keep working at it until you get it done.
I did. I would stay late all the
Yeah.
time.
Is there a difference? Because when you work for Jamie and the mindset you ended up being there 5 years, so when he invested in you, that paid back because you were there and worked on many projects.
Oh,
with him.
yeah.
You feel like there's a culture change now where people, not just employees, but employees, don't stay that long. They don't invest themselves in the job. And so, like, people get in the jobs and leave after a year.
I don't know.
And so it's not worth the investment because
It's both. There's
very-
both
it's very-
sides, man.
I don't know if I could possibly generalize. I will say that that a bunch of my crew on MythBusters stays late. They work on their own stuff. They learn. They absorb. And we've got people on our crew everywhere from 22 all the way up to Jamie, who's like 90.
I think he's
and they stay
87.
there for a while.
Yeah, we have very low turnover.
Yeah.
Very, very low. So I couldn't possibly generalize on that front. I would say that, when kids ask me, do you have advice about going to work? I mean, one of my pieces of advice is point and ask and tell everyone. So one is look around at the thing you're doing. If there's something that interests you, you should just tell your boss, I'm interested in doing that.
More often than not, they're going to say, "That's great. Here's what are you interested in? What can we do to make?" Because they want to keep you happy if you're good.
Yeah, as an employer, when I have an employee who's interested, I know they're going to do really well. They're going to have a leg up, right? The other one is you got to tell people what you're doing. Like you gotta crow a little bit about what you're doing, and I don't mean brag about it, but I just mean when you're doing something cool, you got to talk about it so that people understand you're the only one out there selling your value.
Well, but the other benefit of talking about stuff with people, especially when you're in a great work environment, is that you level up. Like getting other people's feedback on the stuff that you're doing almost always is a positive. Even if you end up not agreeing with them, it means that you think about it more and think about it in a different way. So that communication is at least for me, unbelievably valuable.
Absolutely. When I first after I worked for Jamie, I worked for Zoob, the toy company, ball and socket joined in building toy, for about a year plus.
Was that out here?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were right across the street from ACT in the building above Pizza Kitchen.
Oh, wow.
We had like 3 floors of that building. I worked for them as head of R&D for a while and merchandising. That was really invaluable. But
was it a startup or is it?
Yeah, effectively.
Okay.
And then I quit that job and I hounded ILM until they hired me. And when I finally got up to Industrial Light and Magic, I wanted to make a splash, so I brought in my toolboxes, which were these insanely elaborate doctor's kits. And that was about 2 months, and then the doctor's kits started to fail because there's just too many tools in them. So I remade them in aluminum, and I did that in one night, like one crazy night.
Those one night, like a good one night, is a wonderful thing.
This is pre-children, right?
Yeah.
So I was up until like 3 a.m. I riveted so many rivets in my toolboxes, I couldn't write with a pencil the next morning, and I didn't even know about it. I just picked up a pencil and it just didn't work. But then, so the toolboxes, that was absolutely getting me. People were talking about it, and Adam in those toolboxes, and then a really good friend of mine now, Michael Lynch, is one of the great supervisors I'll ever have. He's just a wonderful guy. He comes over and he goes, you should probably put those up on scissor lifts so they're higher so you can reach them. And I was like, challenge accepted. So Friday night I went home and I built them, and Monday morning I came in with rolling dollies with scissor lifts under my aluminum toolkits. And the thing is that ever after, Mike tells the story, and the next morning he came in.
Well, so you were building a reputation, though.
Absolutely, totally.
And that meant that when Jamie called, he knew you. Well, I mean, this was after that, but yeah, people knew you.
Absolutely, and that was invaluable.
What the other thing I would say is that when you're in your 20s, the mistake I made was that I didn't take enough risks in my 20s. You did, I think. But before you have kids, before you have a family,
as I said last week, I had the luxury of being able to take a risk.
Well, but,
I had a little bit of a cushion in my parents.
But even so, before you have massive expenses of family and home,
That's absolutely true.
then you should this is a lesson that our friend Brian taught me much too late to do me any good, but you should keep your expenses as low as possible.
Yeah.
As long as you can. I know that's with people coming out of school with $200,000 worth of debt.
Yeah.
That is a tough ask. But if you're just going into school, think about that as you go into school.
Yeah.
And that, by keeping your expenses low, it gives you the freedom to kind of do whatever you want and take those big risks before it's too late.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
And I don't think it's ever too late.
No, it's never too late.
Okay, Norm, are you going to say this week that you never had a great job?
Oh, they've all been great jobs.
I
think they've all been.
Tell
great
us about,
jobs.
because you've been kind of quiet. I just want to know about like an early job that helped shape Norman Chan.
Oh Jesus.
You got to tell you.
No, I don't know.
You
I work for myself a lot. I
Really?
started little things with friends in school, and in college, and I sold T-shirts in college.
That you designed?
Yes, and
Which T-shirts were they, Norm?
they were they were the T-shirts of a failed American Idol contestant, and we sold like 20,000 of them.
Whoa!
Out of my apartment
No
in college, and that's why I
way!
got really bad grades. So,
but
but
you
it
had
was,
a
it was
good
a
bank
great
account.
great learning experience.
But
Yeah.
but you all, and then your first job.
20,000
Yep.
t-shirts.
And
Oh,
it was,
yeah.
It was the tower of UPS boxes. We can get free boxes and packages from USPS. Oh yeah.
Wow.
it was
I'm totally amazed.
When you applied for the internship at PC
Oh,
Gamer,
yeah, 15 years old when I forgot my first internship, and back then, I mean, labor laws. Back then,
We were
really
loose with
helped.
labor laws back
loose
then.
labor laws were the catalyst for many careers.
Yeah.
And it was just
like, did you just show up at the
easily
office?
just call people and mail letters. And back then, people answered actual letters, written letters.
Wow.
Did they know you were 15 when they brought you in for an interview? Okay.
Yeah,
He was like this tall.
I couldn't drive.
Yeah, had to get a ride from his mom to work.
That was like 3 years
that's
ago.
Cute.
Yeah.
But every job teaches you something different.
Absolutely.
You take away because no managers are the same.
No managers are the same, and everyone has their weaknesses. But yeah, it's your response to that stuff that really is important. And that's actually something that I try and let my kids know, that how you do this now is shaping how you'll do it later. So let me tell you, from my experience, if you start out making lists with little boxes you can check, boy, you'll be ahead of the game later on.
This is the best thing ever. Working multiple jobs.
Yeah.
Because it's very tough to start off with a full time. It's great starting off with a lot of jobs in college, having 4 jobs and in different places in the hierarchy in each. That is tremendous.
You mean CEO of T-shirt magnate
running your own
versus
small T-shirt company, being an intern somewhere, being an assistant somewhere else, and then being a manager in a school thing, right? Things that you learn about managing skills in one job apply to other jobs, and they all feed each other.
Absolutely. For a while in the early 90s, actually for a long time, for 2.5 years, I worked as a backstage tech for Beach Blanket Babylon in North Beach. Now, I was an understudy tech, which is an exhausting job because every position in Beach Blanket Babylon, which is this San Francisco institution, it's been going for like 35 years or more, 40 years maybe?
40 years, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a frenetic show with tons of like drag and comedy and performance, and each position backstage has 200 plus cues in an 80-minute show.
Good God.
Yeah, so you have to memorize them all. It takes
I'm
3
sure.
months to train for the understudy tech. So, but the thing was, is I only had to work 2 days a week. The other 3 days were on call. 3 or 4 days I was on call, which meant that for the most part, I didn't have to be anywhere until 6 p.m. any night. So I worked 2 jobs. I worked Beach Blanket Babylon several nights a week, between 2 and 5 nights a week. And during the days, I worked for Berkeley Repertory Theater in their prop department. And I knew they knew my schedule. Sometimes I might have to leave a little early to get across the bridge in time for Beach Blanket. I had a pager.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Pager was the late 90s sign of a serious job.
Or middle schooler.
Yeah, or a drug dealer alternately.
Yes.
Did you have health insurance during that stuff?
Beach Blanket had good health insurance. They had real health insurance, and I utilized some of it because this job was really hard on your body.
Mm-hmm.
But no, after that, I didn't really.
I assumed for most of the time you were doing effects work, you probably were.
No,
were
not until I got to
contracting.
ILM and got in the local 16 IATSE union did I get real benefits, and then I've never not had them since.
Yeah.
After I left ILM, after I stopped working in IATSE, there's a certain period of time after which your health insurance lapses. There was a lag, and actually, it was just about the time I met my current wife. And we just got a little bit of float insurance to carry us through that, and now I've been with the same carrier ever since. But boy, yeah, I was fast and fancy free back then.
Yeah,
health insurance was ridiculous.
It was, yeah, I did things that were scary back then.
When you're immortal, you can do anything.
Right. Oh, God, don't you? It's particularly the thing with me and my kids being 15. It's like I know feel like you're immortal. I know you feel like there's just like a endless things.
You need to teach them what real pain is. It's the only way to make them safe. So it's the Paul Maudib thing where you put the hand in the pain box. This is what
is the mind killer.
This is the bad thing. I think that's as good a place to wrap it up as any.
That is. I look forward to reading the comment section this time.
Yeah.
Great job.
And just to be clear, we recorded this well before the Bad Jobs episode was posted. So we haven't taken any of your feedback from the last episode at all.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah, we're flying blind here.
But you know, one of the particular things I like is crazy bosses who you realize later were awesome.
Oh, it sounds like a TV cliche, but it's actually a good thing. Yeah.
True. You'll work for some absolute nut jobs, but later on you'll be like, wow, that was great.
Yeah.
Stories.
Yeah, totally. I worked for this theater company out here called George Coates Performance Works, which was really an amazing experience. And George Coates is still around. He's a total nut job. I mean, was like as a director, crazy, but also incredibly visionary.
What do you mean? Like, give me an example of crazy. Give me a PG-13 example of crazy.
No. We had the show I worked on was called The Architecture of Catastrophic Change, and it involved sort of loosely based around the Loma Prieta earthquake. And the stage was this huge ramp that lifted up and down, and actors flew across the stage on ropes and wire ropes and harnesses and stuff. And during one portion of the show, an actor is supposed to gets clicked into a harness, and he gets sort of supported on a block and fall while other actors support like a 15-foot ladder, and he climbs to the top. But he's supported by a block and fall. One night, the block and fall failed, and George ran to the front and made them actually climb the ladder anyway, while actors below supported the ladder.
Oh my God!
During a performance.
That's amazing.
It was insane. Anyway, stories like that. That's what we're looking for in the comments section.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody's at the door. We'll see you guys next week. Comments, feedback, etc.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.